Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode. We really appreciate you joining us. Here is your host.
Hey creatives, welcome to the Writers Creative Space, a space where authors and aspiring authors can get inspiration, advice, tips, and encouragement on their self-publishing journey. My name is Roland and welcome to episode 4. On this show, I am going to talk about the importance of setting goals. The best way to make progress is by setting goals for yourself. I talk about what having goals did for me as I started my writing journey, so more on that later in the show. For now, let's get into some news. I have finally finished the first edit of my book. I am so excited about that. So I have sent the book to the editor, which means I can start working on a date of release. I know other authors would have already set a date of release earlier in their writing process, but for me, this seems like the best time to start working on that. I might change that later on as I do this more, but for now, this is what I will stick with and I will let you know on the date of release. So any date I come up with will very likely be achieved because there is not much left to do. And what I mean by that is why I haven't set a date earlier is because I feel like if I set a date earlier, then something could come up or things could come up and I would have to push back the date. Whereas at the stage I am on now is the book has gone to the editor and I will get it back and I probably will do 1 or 2 more edits on it, but it's more likely that the date I set in this time frame now will be a more confirmed date. Once I get it back, you will have a date and I will let you know on that. Once I get the cover done, I will make the book available for pre-order. So all these things are what I need to know now as in specifics. I'll let you know on that. And this is what it means to be an indie author. These are the processes you have to go through as you want to self-publish a book. You make the calls and the decisions and you determine your pace. And that's the freedom you have as an indie author. In my last episode, I said I would tell you the title of the book that I am writing, and after much deliberation, I have finally made a decision, and the title of the book is Delayed But Not Forgotten. And the book talks about what it means to wait on the Lord and why it's important to be patient as we wait. So if you have been waiting long for an answer to prayer and it seems like nothing is happening, which has left you confused, discouraged, and ignored by God, then this book is for you. And that's all I will say about the book at this stage. I'll probably tell you more later on as it gets closer and closer to the day of release. But on other news, I have finally opened my Kobo writing account. I am so excited about this. Kobo is, if you didn't know, is another book publishing company like Amazon, not as big, but their reach is broader, more worldwide. You can reach more people worldwide with Kobo. And your books will even be available in libraries, which is amazing. I will be publishing my first book on Kobo as a trial run and to learn how it works. Once that's done, I will publish my second book, this one, on Kobo when it's done. Because when I published my first book, I went exclusive on Amazon, which means I couldn't publish my book on other platforms. And since Amazon is not in every country, I had friends who could not buy my first book in the country they were in. And at that time, I didn't know I had other options. And this is the whole thing about learning from your mistakes, right? So now I know, and that's why this time around, I'm going to be putting all my books on all platforms. So this time I will be publishing wide. And that doesn't mean my books won't be on Amazon. They will, but it will also mean my books will be on other platforms as well. And that's the freedom and flexibility I have publishing wide and being a self-published author. And that's the freedom and flexibility you have. On the last note, I won't be talking about things learned from reading Ricardo's new marketing book in this episode. I felt like I had a lot of updates to share and didn't want my insights from the book to be drowned out by everything else. So look forward to that in the next episode. I'll make sure to focus more on that because that book has been amazing. It's the insights that I've been getting they've really helped me, and I would love to share more of what I've been getting. And actually, what I will do is share the insights on my blog as well. So I have started a blog. It's the Writers Creative Blog, where I'll be sharing tips as well and advice and encouragement, but in smaller chunks. So please do subscribe to my blog to read what I've been learning and other things. So I'll be just talking about a whole bunch of other things, which are smaller that I won't be covering in my podcast. So just make sure to subscribe, and I will leave the link in the episode show notes. So I think we can move on to the main topic. And the main topic is, like I said, is living in a to-do list. And you may be wondering, what the heck do I mean by living in a to-do list? So anyway, last week I talked about a podcast I listened to that spoke about the importance of scheduling writing in your day. In some cases, we can forget to write if it's not scheduled. So I added writing to my to-do list, and that has really helped me. The progress I've made inspired this post because when I finally decided to write and finish my first book, I sat down and wrote some goals, but they were big goals at the time. So I broke down those goals into smaller goals, which made it on my to-do list for the week. So let me explain my goal setting process. So I have a book where I write all my big goals, right? Then I have another book that has broken down those goals into weekly and daily tasks. Hence the to-do list. So week in and week out on a daily basis, I am adding things to that list and ticking off things I have accomplished. And that's how I do it. So just to give you some insight on how I write goals. So back to my goals, I broke down the big goals into something more manageable. For example, I set a date to finish my first book by a certain date, but I never accomplished that goal. And I kept on doing that, writing like big goals, say I want to finish my book by this date. And it was hard. It was a struggle. So what I did then was I broke down the goal into something smaller. I set a new goal of when I would finish my first chapter, then followed by my second chapter, my third chapter. And that was more manageable. There's more bite size, right? So in the weekly and daily to-do list, I wrote down an even smaller goal. Let's go back into this whole first chapter. So let's say I wrote this new goal, my first chapter. So in my weekly and daily to-do list, I then wrote a smaller goal to write a certain amount of words for that chapter each day. So do you see how it works? I just kept on breaking down the goal until I could manage it, and it wasn't so overwhelming and it wasn't so big and grandeur. And that's what I mean by living in a to-do list. And as an author, I think, and even as a person, that's a powerful tool to have and a skill to learn. Because living from a to-do list will help you accomplish the goals that you need to accomplish, and will keep your mind focused and will stop you from procrastinating from doing what you need to do. And when I change my strategy from having these big goals, writing those big goals into smaller goals, and then into more smaller goals, then the results began to show. And as I achieved these small victories after small victory after small victory, I became more confident and worked even harder. And those small victories turned into big victories. And an example of that is when I eventually published my first book. That all came about by this process that I am talking about, where I had a really big goal of when I wanted to finish the book. But then I broke that goal into, first I want to finish my chapter. And I made a goal around that, like when I want to finish my chapter. But I had the smaller goals of, how many words per week I want to accomplish. And then even in a day, in a day, I need to write in this chapter, So by using that process, those small victories turned into a big goal of eventually publishing my first book. And that's how powerful and important having goals and having a to-do list is. And this is something that you learn to do. Like anything you learn for the first time, it takes patience, tenacity, and dedication. And that's what happened to me, is because I had to learn this. So before, I never wrote goals. Before, I didn't have a to-do list. I would just go by the seat of my pants and just, whatever comes goes. And I wasn't really making that much progress. But when I really got down to learning this skill and making a decision to perfect and get this under my belt, that's where the results began to happen. But like I said, it took time, it took patience, it took dedication and tenacity to not give up. But if you already goal set and live in a to-do list, then I would love to know what your processes are. And this is the whole point of the Writers Creator Space, where we can share ideas to help each other. So if you have another way of how you do this and it's working for you, please don't hesitate to share what you do, because that will help a whole bunch of us. And as I come to the end of the show, I want to hear from you. What has challenged you from what you have heard today? Did you enjoy the show? And be sure to leave a comment down below or on my Facebook page or my YouTube channel or on my blog. I would love to hear from you. The links will all be in the episode show notes. Please share this show with people that you know. And even if you don't know them, please share it. And thank you for listening. Until next time, keep safe and keep writing.
Loved what you've heard on this week's episode? Well, the answer is simple. It would mean the world to us if you could head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star review and feedback. Spreading the word really is the best way to grow our podcast and achieve even greater things. Thank you.